Industrial design is where creativity meets function, transforming everyday products into works of art that simplify, enhance, and inspire our lives. From sleek furniture to cutting-edge tech, it's all about blending aesthetics and practicality to shape the future. I take great pleasure introducing Tej Chauhan, the visionary industrial designer, known for his bold, emotive, and futuristic creations to the designers class. Tej has been felicitated by Red Dot, IDSA, Gold and Silver, Good Design, Grand Prix, and many more. With a unique approach blending function and imagination, Tej's designs turn everyday objects into extraordinary experiences now and always. Join us as we dive into his journey, inspirations, and creative process. Welcome, Tej, to the designers class.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Nice to meet you as well. So, Tej, going through everything that you've done as part of Nokia and so many other masterpieces that you've created, which I'm sure not just me, but people all around are very, very inspired by. I'm very excited to know today that your design philosophy is about exploring how everyday consumer products and technology can foster sympathy and emotional connection. Can you describe your strategy and thought processes of balancing form, function, and feeling while approaching the design of a product? Or discuss some key inspirations that have guided your approach to transforming everyday objects into memorable experiences?
I guess I believe that any surface of any object has the potential to elicit joy. It could be, the way that a particular paperclip is shaped, or the inside of a battery door of a telephone, or the relationship of a particular type of a door or door frame next to a wall. There are certain proportions and relationships between forms that I believe can always be manipulated in such a way to look pleasing and engaging. Coming from a technology background, I've always been particularly interested in my environment and my surroundings and how to integrate tech more harmoniously and seamlessly into our everyday lives and environments and homes and workspaces. If a manufacturer is gonna invest in tooling an object, it doesn't cost any extra to tool it in such a way that evokes some sort of or elicits some sort of emotive response. There's no extra cost in doing that. So I've always been quite interested in these kind of efficiencies in design and these areas of value that we can extract from those experiences at no extra cost. So that's something that I've always been drawn to, and I think that over the years, over 20 years, we've been able to hone this into a strategic process that we deploy in all of our collaborations, regardless of whether we're designing a chair or whether we're designing a telephone or a television or a toilet brush. It doesn't really matter. That initial starting place is always the same. I believe that anything created in a way to try at least.
Absolutely. So as a follow-up, Tej, very interesting thoughts there. Do you think the geometry in forms has the capability to influence the message that you're trying to convey? Because, for example, for me, curves are associated with softness, flawlessness, and visual harmony, while linearity could associate itself very clearly with precision. So do you think these can impact different users in different ways?
Yeah, geometry has everything to do with it because it's actually the relationship of geometry. So, for me, I think if I'm trying to define it, or if I'm trying to put a more scientific angle on it, or a mathematical angle on it, it's more about the relationship of one line or curve next to another. And I think that if you get those relationships right, you can hit this kind of sweet spot, which always looks nice. It's not always going to look nice for everybody, but my experience is that if it gives me a certain feeling, the chances are it might also give my client that kind of feeling, therefore their customers and users, and we're able to spread that message or spread the love, if you like, through that. So in answer to your question, in a nutshell, I think that yes, absolutely, geometry and relative geometries have very much to do with that kind of emotive response that I was talking about earlier.
I totally agree. I think small design details can be very, very playful, and these thoughtful micro interactions that we have with products and technology today are worth reflecting on. So that takes me to the next question. A career spanning more than 20 years, a majority of it spent in your own practice. You have spearheaded the design of iconic products, ranging from mobile phones and sunglasses to baby monitors and beyond. How do you reflect on your journey and evolution as a product designer since you started?
I think the journey is a process of learning, and I think that we are all always still learning. And, there are experiences that you have along the way. Some went the way that you wanted them to go, others that didn't. They're all opportunities for learning and kind of enriching yourself. Of course, I think all of us as designers and people anyway, we are all always still learning and adapting to different situations and different things that are placed in front of us, whether it's a different kind of a brief or a project that I've never worked on before, or whether it's meeting somebody who's just got a different angle on something or a different take on something. What's helped me is just trying to be open and absorbing as much information, observing. Eventually you kind of get to a point where I felt that I needed to start to define more clearly what it was that I did, but it only, it takes experience and time, or it took experience and time for me to understand, what exactly I was able to, bring to the party, why work with me and not that designer or that designer. You have to be able to sort of define what it is that you do in order to find the right partners and the right projects and collaborations where you're more or less singing from the same hymn sheet with your client collaborating partner, as opposed to constantly coming to loggerheads, because those kind of relationships I find can be interesting, but you already have some sort of alignment where the most interesting conversations and outcomes can happen. Yeah, I think it's just been a lovely process of learning. I think that's the biggest takeaway I have so far anyway.
For sure. And that takes me to a very interesting question now. Can you share a lesser known design project that didn't achieve the same commercial success as some of your iconic works, but taught you valuable lessons about emotional or user-centered design?
There's one that springs to mind which taught me a little bit about relationships, I think, and a little bit gave us some learnings when we were honing our kind of design strategy, this emotive design strategy, which we later emotive industrial design. It was, we were doing a big television project for a really well-known tech company who most people would have heard of. I remember that it was quite a big project. I think I remember there being quite a few kind of sort of ongoing requests from the client through the project. I really was sticking to my guns on what I thought, we were presenting two concepts. And there was one in question, which I think was really interesting for the client, but they wanted a few changes. And I was at that time of the mind that I didn't really want to make those changes. I think that was a really big learning for me, because although, that product was presented at the very highest level of this very well-known Asian tech company, to a really a receptive and appreciative audience, my particular European contact, we didn't get any more projects from those guys. And that was a really big learning for me. It's quite early on in the studio days. That's something that's one project over the 20 years I really reflect on, and I wish that I would have a little bit differently. And for sure, I in those early days, I really did feel like I knew to some level. I did really know what I was doing, but I think that I would have, because when I look back on that work now, I can understand the changes that were being asked for would, I think, have made it a project with much more longevity, a design and a form with a much longer time span. And I look at it now and I'm like, yeah, that didn't age well. That one project, I think, was too emotive. It was too of that moment. It was too much me. And I didn't get the balance right, I didn't balance the DNA of the client with my own DNA. I didn't get that balance right. And it became, I think, too emotive. But, sometimes you have to break a boundary to realize that, that's maybe one that I should have only been pushing, but not breaking.
Oh, that's great reflection right there, for sure. So, Tej, also your pioneering phone designs in the early 2000s, such as the Nokia 7600 called the Mango, 7280, the Lipstick, 7370 known as the Swivel, all challenged the conventional candy bar format, designs which were so ahead of their time. When you look at phones nowadays, there doesn't seem to be as much innovation when it comes to the design. It's just a standard rectangular screen with a certain number of camera lenses on the back. How do you approach an industry that is so set in its own ways and challenge the status quotient of the product design?
In a nutshell, it can be very frustrating because we do a lot of work in the mobile communication field, of course, because of my background. And it's very often that we are presented with a brief, from pretty big brands saying, hey, Tej, we want some wow, or hey, we want something different. And I always get so excited with those briefs. I say, yeah, we can give you wow. Because, there's still, I'm asked all the time, is there still scope to do new and interesting things with smartphone design? Absolutely, yes, there is. But you need to be working with a partner who's brave enough to do something different, who is not constantly or not too busy looking sideways, but only looking forwards, and it's quite difficult to come by those partners, to be honest with you. Ones who, we present. My objective is always to try to make our partners stand above the competition, because there's so much noise everywhere, online, in store. We are bombarded with the new. How do you stand out?
I totally agree to that. And I think that I also personally do not see any emotional differentiation in phones of today. I think we have to move beyond premium materials to truly meaningful interactions with the product. New ways of holding multi-modal forms, challenging the endless scroll addiction patterns. I think it's ridiculous. It's time to reimagine the user experience to encourage healthier usage and behavior, where design for digital well-being from the ground up needs to be considered. Don't you think that?
100%. One could look at it as an opportunity to have a bit of a digital detox. We're all so reliant on these technologies. There's definitely work to be done. Not only creating new and exciting experiences that still keep us connected, perhaps trying to do those in a healthier way. But it's a really tough nut to crack, I think, because, nowadays the device is just a vehicle in a way. You can look at it that way, because it's the software companies dictating behaviors. Could start to, I'm already, to be honest with you, working on an idea for younger audiences would offer a different experience while still. So there's loads of potential. It's just trying to find companies feel the same way and are interested in developing those kind of.
For sure. With that thought, I'd like to dive a bit deeper into your design process. One particular design that resonates and stands out for me, likewise with many others, the Nest oven trays you designed for Joseph. The simplicity and functionality of this product is truly unparalleled, embodying the idea that the simplest solution is often the best. Could you walk us through your thought process while designing the Joseph Nest oven tray?
That project came out of a much broader research project for Joseph. I think it was called Kitchen to Table, but it was all about experiences in the kitchen, cooking experiences and other serving experiences that you could also kind of bring from the kitchen space to your serving and dining space. And Joseph is a brand where there always needs to be some sort of practical innovation. I think the trays are a really good example of, drawing on my own experience or our own experiences as a team when we were designing that around, what happens in the kitchen and what happens with oven trays in the oven. Basically, when you're making it, for me, it was like when you're making a lasagna, it's a real pain in the ass to try and get that massive tray out of the oven, because the tray might be wide and the oven is only so wide, and you've got your gloves on, you don't want to burn yourself. The tray's been in there for a long time, so it's going to be like super hot, and you've got to kind of it's a real sort of an exercise in dexterity trying to remove this hot oven tray. Wouldn't it be just what is the simplest way that we could try to solve that particular problem? Why don't we just have a lip on the front of the tray that you can just pull the tray out? Sometimes the simplest solutions are the ones that you just don't see because you're trying to look for something. Everything that we do, regardless of any brand that we're working with, there always has to be an improvement. Otherwise, what is the point? You're just adding another object to the planet. It's got to improve on what came before it, or the experience has got to be better somehow. It doesn't matter what we're designing, whether it's a smartphone or whether it's an oven tray, or it's got to be better. It's got to create a story for our client. They've got to be able to talk about it and in an authentic and meaningful and excited way. Our work is about, first of all, a product has to look compelling. It's got to make you take a second look, a second glance, because there's, as I was saying before, there's so much visual stimulation everywhere. You've got to be able to, you've got, a split second to try and get someone's attention. Within that split second, you've got to tell a story. You've got to deliver a narrative in literally less than 1 second. Something that encourages then the viewer to stop for a second and interact somehow, whether it's clicking, whether it's picking something up off the shelf in a store. The next step after you've got that hook, that visual hook, is how does it feel? How does the experience continue from the visual experience to the tactile experience to how it feels and how it functions? Wow, it's so intuitive, right? You got to get that kind of feeling across that it doesn't have to be all bells and whistles. It just has to feel right.
Absolutely.
You just got to have the right level of rightness to make someone feel, yeah, I get it. That's exactly what I was expecting. In fact, it was a bit better than I was expecting. And if you get the manufacturing processes efficient and right, then your customers are able to, offer these experiences, in an affordable and an accessible way, and is, good news for everybody. That's kind of how we try to approach everything we do. It's got to be exciting. It's got to work. It's got to work better than you thought it was going to work. It's got to be accessible.
I think that was great emotional journey mapping right there in terms of the Joseph project, for sure. Fantastic, Tej. So that also rolls me to my next question about TDC, first of all. The Designers Class is an online design education platform. And here is a question I'm sure most of our students would be eager to ask you. India is at the crossroads when it comes to design, where basic functionality of consumer products no longer cuts it. What advice would you give to budding designers who want to make a mark in the field of the product design industry, along with any unique opportunities that you see in the online design education platform for nurturing the next generation's ability to think beyond conventional product solutions?
I think the biggest advice that I could give from my own experience is learn who you are. Figure out what it is you're offering and how to communicate that. Try to figure out, what your difference is, what your proposition is, because by doing that, you can begin to articulate it. And by beginning to articulate it, people can get to know what it is that you do and how it will benefit them, you would attract the right kind of people to work with. I think that's the big learning. Back in the day when I first started, I thought, I could do anything for anybody. And in a way, I kind of reaching that point where we were able to articulate quite clearly and understand, just really understand ourselves. What actually are we good at? What do we bring to the party? Because we do things in a certain way, in a certain style, with a certain strategic approach. Figuring out what that was really, really important. And because it allowed us to articulate that and therefore find the right audiences and partners to work with. So that's why I say young designers should really give some thought to what they're bringing to the party, how to articulate that. Because, there are going to be interesting challenges from AI technology, and how do we work with those? I still haven't figured that out myself, by the way. I think the ways of working have certainly changed in the sort of 25 years that I've been doing what I'm doing. I think that rate of change now is going to be growing like exponentially. So you've got to not only know what it is that, for example, if you want to generate content, like really good, relevant content through something like Midjourney, you have to be really good delivering it the right prompts. So, you need to think about that. You need to think about what you're trying to get out of that tool. Just that relates directly back to understanding what it is that you're trying to get out of yourself and what you're offering the world.
Can you describe a time when a product made you feel particularly understood or cared for? Are we associating ourselves so deeply with products? And if we are, do we say that there are certain products that make us feel more valued than just the other ordinary products in competition with those?
Yeah, I think that part of the question is quite a big question because, of course, people align themselves, because brand comes into it. People start to align themselves with brands and experiences, and not for everybody, but quite often they can become part of their identity, their tribe. I wear these kind of sneakers, or I have this kind of mobile phone. I buy Apple products, or no, I'm an Android person. So of course there is a sense of identity in in the choices that people make and the kind of products that they surround themselves with, without a doubt. But I also think that, things are going to have to change because we're in this situation now where, I'm in a way, people like me have been part of the problem. We're facilitating never-ending in a way. And of course, I want everything that I do to have some sort of meaning and to bring some worth, some improvement. Really what I want is all of the projects to come through my door now, getting people to engage with the story of sustainability and what's happening at the moment with our planet, and how best to, how do we use the tools that I can offer to engage people in better consumer practices? Whether, do we need something? Do I really need that? Why do I need that? Really, do I need that? When I broke my phone the other day, I think I had the option from the insurance company, get it fixed or get a new one. And I thought, I'll get a new one. Well, no, actually, why do I need to get a new one? The other one is still working fine. And, it is better for me just to get it fixed. And so I got it fixed. The option was there. Going back to your original question, that's a really good question. And I think that there's lots of products, I'm sure, that have just made me feel really, that works for me. I get it. It almost feels like it's designed for me. But unfortunately, my brain, when I'm asked a question like that, I can't. It's not coming to me. I've had probably lots of these great experiences, but I think it's a really meaningful question, and it deserves a really meaningful answer. So I don't want to just pick out any random product off the top of my head. I'm just looking around my office now just to see if there's anything that I can see.
I just think that understanding deeper user motivations and fears have become significantly important in today's date. It's strange, not anymore funny to me, that every year the design of a mobile phone is so from the manufacturer's end that it is meant to be obsolete after a period of time. Bigger question lies in how much do we support, these kind of upgradations, or as an audience, as a society where we're speaking about sustainability, speaking about consumer practices, are we already unknowingly, providing for it without realizing that we gave it off to the manufacturers long back? And ultimately, I think it's a psychological game.
It's absolutely, spot on, what you're saying. I think that, and there's lots of different facets to this conversation. In a way, we live, there is this kind of relentless thirst for the new. Consumers have become used to and accustomed to, like, when is the next, big tech launch? What is it going to look like? What's it going to be about? But I think really it's about re-educating ourselves and re-educating our audiences about how to create those, happy hormones without going shopping for something new. How can we recreate newness without having to physically create a whole entirely new, object or device? How do we kind of satisfy that need for the new and exciting in a way that is more wholesome, for willingness and bravery there's lots of, like, for example, just going back to smartphone design, there are ways of creating interesting new experiences in ways that don't require you having to update your entire new phone every other year.
So thank you for your time, and I was very happy to host you today at the Designers Class, and looking forward to seeing so much together in a day or two.
Yeah, it's been my pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.